Hey mama, I want to talk to you. If you feel like you are doing it all and doing it almost perfectly, flawless most of the time, but you feel like also your career just isn't where it should be, you don't have enough joy in your life, if you feel like you need to be Wonder Woman all the time, do you ever whisper to yourself, like, if it's not flawless, I'm failing? Have you ever skipped an opportunity because you're worried that if you don't show up and do it extremely well or perfectly, it's going to tarnish your reputation and you won't get any new opportunities? If you feel like this, if you feel like you have to be perfect all the time, if you ever whisper to yourself, if it's not flawless, I'm failing, then I got a word for you. We need to talk about this, because feeling like you need to do it all and feeling like you have to do it all perfectly is a form of perfectionism. And that perfectionism is keeping you in peril. Perfectionism is keeping you in peril. It is holding you back from what it is that you really want in life. So let's talk about how you can do more with less stress, how you can have greater joy without having to do every single thing perfectly. People say, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And in a way that's true when it comes to our morals and our standards, right? Like the way that you show up morally every single day, it is who you are. But the idea that how you do one thing is how you do everything does not apply to practical application. Because you know what? Some things need less energy than others. Some things need less time than others. Some things deserve less of your time and energy than others. And trying to make sure you're doing everything perfectly really can stop you from actually delivering well on those things that are most important to your life and your dreams. When you are in the pursuit of excellence, it needs to be said that, yes, the pursuit of excellence is noble and it moves our careers forward. But if we try and do everything in an excellent way, we end up doing a lot of things not so great. We end up with excessive stress and burnout. When we try and do things completely flawlessly all the time, we end up neglecting our self-care. Let's be real, like as moms, the first thing to go is a time for ourselves. We'll put our career first and our kids and our partner and our parents and our community. But then when it comes time for us, like that will be the first thing to go. And it's true that if you're not taking care of yourself, then you can't show up at 100% and you can't actually do your best. If you are always pursuing excellence and feel like everything has to be flawless, you are also going to be missing opportunities. You're going to struggle because of time constraints. Why? Because you're going to be spending way too much time on the things that aren't important, which won't leave time for the things that are important to you. When you feel the need to be perfect, you are going to struggle deeply with having flexibility when it comes to life events. Stuff is going to pop up and it's going to be so hard to deal with because you're not going to be able to do things perfectly when the kids get sick, right? Or when you get sick. Or when you have a leak, right? And these things happen. And if you can deal with them in a less stressed way, you can actually deal with them better and deal with all the other things happening around you better. And the last thing is when you're always trying to be perfect, when you feel like everything has to be flawless, it stresses you out. You're telling yourself stories about how important this perfection is, and your kids feel it, and it impacts them too. So I want to give you solutions to move past this, so that you don't have to feel like you need to be perfect all the time. But more importantly, so you can move that perfection out of the way and instead replace it with the ability to move forward, to advance your career, to have more joy, to stress less. Let me give you 3 ways. Here's the first way. You really need to think about what happens if you don't do something flawlessly. Ask yourself the question, what happens if I don't do this thing flawlessly? Going back to that idea that not everything deserves your same amount of time and energy, let's think about a presentation. Say you're putting together a presentation, and this presentation is with some colleagues that you work with every single day. The amount of time and energy you need to put into that is very different than the amount of time and energy you need to put into a presentation with the board, right? If you're doing something for your board of directors, it does need to be perfect. But if you're doing something with colleagues you see every single day, if the images are skewed a little to the left, if there's a typo here or there, like they are not going to replace all of the good that you have done in their heads with this one thing that you did not so perfect. Let's think about when it comes to baking, right? You have 1,000 different things that you need to do, and you've got a special dinner coming up at home, and you really want to make an amazing pie because you make great pie. Put the time and effort into making that pie. At the same time, on that same week, you might have a bake sale coming that the PTO has pressured you into. Just make the brownies, okay? Just make the brownies or even buy them, right? They don't deserve the same amount of time and effort. Your special family dinner doesn't deserve the same amount of time and effort as the bake sale, right? I think I tend to feel like as a mom, I need to show up at home and at work and deliver extremely and exceedingly well all the time. But the fact of the matter, it's just not true. So ask yourself, what happens if I don't do this thing flawlessly? Another example is communications, right? If you're sending a Slack to a friend at work, right, your work bestie, or even just, again, someone that you work with on a regular basis, they already know how awesome you are. If there's a typo in that Slack, if you don't say things just so, it's okay. Why? Because they're going to read and intuit what it is that you wanted to share with them. At the same time, if you're sending a message to your boss or your boss's boss, you're sending something to the CEO, put the time and effort to do the proofreading, right? You have to manage who it is the audience is and what it is that you really need to deliver for them. And not everybody needs everything delivered in a flawless way. So just ask yourself, what happens if I don't do this flawlessly? If I don't send that presentation to the board in a flawless way, my career could be in jeopardy. If I don't send that presentation to my group of colleagues that I work with every single day in a flawless way, not much is going to happen. Maybe someone's going to point out the typo and then I'll say, oh yeah, but did you get the point? Did you understand what it was that I was trying to get across? Can I confirm with you that all the data in here is correct? Then cool, we're good, right? Like, think about that. Ask those questions. When it comes time to, do these baking things that I talked about, right? If you don't show up with that perfect pie for dinner, even then things are going to be okay if it tastes good, but you might feel a little bit bad. At the same time, if you bring the brownies to the PTO, are they still going to sell it and make money? Yes. If they're not flawless, is it going to be okay? It's going to be just fine. So make sure that if perfectionism is keeping you in peril, you ask yourself, if this isn't flawless, what happens? And here's the thing. You cannot answer this question with, my reputation is going to be completely tanked. Because I know that's how we feel, right? We feel like if we don't show up perfectly, then people are going to think the worst about us and they're never going to give us another opportunity and they're never going to trust us again. And it's just not true. So remove that part from the answer and come up with your second answer. What happens if you don't do something flawlessly? The other thing you can do is set more realistic goals. If perfectionism is keeping you from actually advancing in life, if perfectionism is robbing your joy, set more realistic goals. You know why? Because the bar for us, I know the bar for me, I know how it is when you're a working mom. You set the bar way up here, but the bar doesn't always have to be up there. One great way to do this is to actually ask your stakeholder, like ask the in-person, what it is that they want. Hey Bob, if I get this presentation done for you by X date and all the information inside of it is great, how pretty does it really need to be? Let him tell you. He might say, oh, you know what? Jean's going to be in the room and she's a stickler for design, so you really have to make sure that everything, like I's are dotted, T's are crossed. Or he could say, yeah, that's fine. I mean, everyone who's in the room is really just going to be interested in the information, right? Ask those questions so you're not putting too much pressure on yourself. Same when it comes to dinner. You're like, hey, babe, I'm making dinner tonight, and do you really need it to be plated perfectly? Do I have to like wipe around the outside of the plate? Or if it tastes good, is that enough? They're probably going to say it's enough. When it comes time to like do a science project with your kids or whatever take home stuff they're giving you, does it have to be perfect and the biggest and the baddest and the best? No. In fact, the time that you spend with your kid is probably more important, but ask them, hey, we're going to do this science project together. Let's talk about what it's going to look like and what do you want to see, right? And let them tell you so that you're not always making up things, because when we set goals for ourselves, we tend to set them higher than they need to be. The third thing is to embrace criticism. I want you to think about criticism as a gift. And yes, you do have to be able to sift through the trolls who are just going to say stuff to say it. But think about criticism as a gift, because criticism ultimately helps you get better, right? What is going to advance your career? What is going to help you attain the life that you want? Is it when someone says, hey, high five, you did a good job? Or is it when someone says, hey, here's how you could have gotten better? And then you can take that information and actually go and do better. For me, I find it a gift when someone will take the time to actually tell me how I can be better. That is so much more useful in life than having someone just say, hey, high five, you did a good job. And I'm going to give you a bonus one. If perfection is keeping you in peril, if it's stopping you from advancing, and these things that I just shared with you, these tips I shared with you are not feeling like they're going to help, then look for a coach. Find a coach, find someone to help you, or maybe even go to therapy, right? A few weeks of therapy could do wonders for freeing you of this burden so that you can actually start to advance and drive your career in the direction that you want it to go and have more joy. So there you have it. If you like this conversation, please check out my podcast, The Savvy Working Mom, where we talk all about how we can move forward in life and flourish with more joy and less stress as working moms.
Hey mama, if you like what you just heard, I'm now offering VIP days where we can work together to help you thrive in and out of the office. Come check it out on my website, The Savvy Working Mom.